Say go! Hello everyone and welcome back to our Saturday morning breakfast club. Today we're going to be making broccoli and cheddar quiche. The ingredients we'll be using in this week's recipe are 2 cups of broccoli florets, 5 large eggs, 3/4 of a cup of milk, half a teaspoon of salt, a 1/4 teaspoon of pepper, 1 cup of grated cheddar cheese, and 1 9-inch pie crust. In addition to the ingredients, you're also going to need a few things from around the kitchen. You'll need a knife, a cutting board, a medium pot, your measuring cups and spoons, a whisk, a cheese grater, and a mixing bowl. Go ahead, grab your ingredients and the items from around the kitchen, and then come on back so I can give you a quick overview of the rest of the prep work before we actually get started. The first thing we're going to want to do is cut up our broccoli into small florets and then go ahead and cook it. I'm choosing to steam my broccoli in a steamer basket. However, you can go ahead and cook your broccoli in whatever way you prefer. The one thing you're going to want to make sure is that you don't overcook your broccoli because it is going to cook more in the oven when it's inside of that quiche. We basically just want to cook it until it's nice, crisp, and tender. Once it's finished, you're going to dump it into a colander or drain it, run it under some cold water, and then leave it to cool while we take care of everything else. We've still got just a couple more things we need to get done. Now is the time to go ahead and grate your cheese. We're also going to want to take that frozen pie shell out of the freezer and just leave it on the counter so that it can start to thaw. By the time we're ready to pour all of our ingredients into that pie shell, it should be pretty good and ready. Yikes! I almost forgot probably the most important part of this whole process. We need to go ahead and preheat our ovens to 375 degrees. Nothing is going to get cooked if we don't do that. So please push pause and go ahead, preheat your ovens now. Phew, prep work is done and out of the way. Broccoli is cooled. I think we're looking pretty good. So the first thing I want to point out is my pie crust. So I have taken it out. It has started to thaw a little bit, not necessarily as much as we want to just yet, but what we need to do is make sure we poke some holes just in the bottom of that pie crust. Once we've got those holes poked in, we can just set that aside. Now time for our mixing bowl. We can go ahead and crack our 5 eggs into this bowl. Now we're going to add some salt and pepper. So again, we're using half a teaspoon of salt, just sprinkling that in, and then a 1/4 teaspoon of pepper. You can choose to add more or not put the pepper in at all, depending on your own tastes. And we're going to add 3/4 of a cup of milk. This is pouring really slowly, so I'm thinking that one of my kids probably cut the corner and left it a little too small. Go ahead and whisk your eggs, milk, salt, and pepper. Just making sure we get everything blended well and nicely all together. Now we can add the cheese. I'm not actually going to measure out an exact 1 cup of cheese, just because for me personally, I don't think you can go wrong with too much cheese. I am, however, going to hang on to this other cheese and probably use it more towards the end, maybe to sprinkle over the top. Last but not least, that broccoli. So it is nice and cool, which means it's going to be pretty easy to just go ahead and start chopping up. Over here, I can hear the crispness is still there as I'm chopping, which is perfect. That's exactly how we want it. Now you can go ahead and chop this up as small or leave it as large as you would like, depending on who all you're feeding and what the preferences are in your own home. I will say, in hindsight, this turned out to be a lot more broccoli than was necessary for the recipe. So here I'm going to end up adding it all in. I would caution you, however, to add in some, give it a good mix, and then add in some more. As I said, I added in way too much for today's recipe, and you're going to start to see that in just a few minutes. Once you've added your broccoli in, go ahead and just stir up or mix up as best as you can just to get that broccoli incorporated into the egg mixture. Once you feel like it's mixed in fairly well, what we're going to do is literally go ahead and pour this into your pie shell. Right about now is where you're going to see that that's a lot of broccoli. So I did what I could to just space it out a little, and as I was doing this, I noticed that it started leaking. Little side tip, you can go ahead and just pinch up the edges of that crust to try and keep some of the liquid in. That's what I went ahead and did. Once you've done that, you can go ahead and place your quiche into the oven. We're going to want to let it bake for about 35 to 40 minutes. I did put a extra cookie sheet in the bottom just to catch anything that ran over. I knew with 100% certainty that that was going to happen. If you choose to do this, you may find that your quiche takes a little longer to cook just because the heat is got to work its way through those double layers. Now, when it comes to baking, here's a little tip. Check on your quiche around the 25-minute mark. If you notice that the crust is browning too quickly for your liking, grab a piece of tin foil and just tent the quiche. That should help the crust itself from burning. Once you notice that the eggs in the middle have set, you're ready to pull your quiche out of the oven. You're going to want to let it rest for about 5 minutes, and then you can cut it up and go ahead and serve it. I also just wanted to throw in a little piece of information. Leftover quiche reheats really well. Now, the best way to take care of any leftovers would be to place it into a Tupperware container or wrap it really, really well with saran wrap. You want to wrap it individually if you're wrapping it, and then you just place it into the fridge. Again, we hope you liked this week's recipe, and until next weekend, Ona!